Stugatz here. Diehard batteries are like the rare breed of athlete that always plays with a lot of power, but you can also depend on to be on the field game after game. You ask me, that's the type of performance you want under your hood. So head to Advanced Auto Parts, where you can get the reliability, durability, and power of Diehard with free testing and installation from advanced team members. Advance your auto at Advanced Auto Parts and participating CarQuest locations. See stores for details.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugatz Podcast.
No Dan or Stu or shipping container on Labor Day. Is that irony, Fitz? Because we never know when something's coincidental or tech, but I think it might be ironic that none of them are laboring on Labor Day. We, in fact, are doing the labor for them. It's Spain and Fitz, Sarah Spain, Jason Fitz on ESPN Radio, ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80. It is the Le Batard Show with Stugatz. I imagine, Fitz, as soon as they open up the podcast today, people who are out already drinking or perhaps on a boat, barbecuing, getting ready for a long day of fun. Tomorrow, pull up the app, enjoy a little bit of Dan and Stu, realize it's neither of them, and leave it just unopened for the remainder of their lives.
Wait. The thing of it is, Sarah, you are around the Le Batard community so much that you are officially a friend of the show, right?
Right.
And I ride coattails better than anybody at ESPN. So I feel like by the very virtue of that, like I'm basically Aladdin and you are the magic carpet that's coattailing me right into friend of the show. At this point, we're basically like part of the Le Batard family. So maybe maybe somebody checks it out, hangs out with us for a little bit.
We should talk about what a great job of coattail riding you've done, because somehow you've managed to do it without acquiring the reputation that Stugatz has for being someone who will attach himself to any successful property at the company, right? Whether that's his attempts to become a part of the Golic family, sidling up to Keyshawn as soon as that show started. Just, if you ever need anything and you need guests on the show, he really has tried to assert himself all over the company. You have done more so. And yet somehow you've managed to emerge unscathed. No reputation for being a barnacle.
Look, if this was a horror movie, like if this was Gremlins, I'm still in that cute stage where I haven't had the water past a lot of time. And Stugatz is full Gremlin. So like that's the whole thing. Like as long as I'm like huggable and pokeable,
as long as you're
like
Gizmo.
That's all that matters. That I am Gizmo of ESPN. I'm proud of this. Like now I know what I'm going to wear for Halloween.
Which brings us, by the way, to another fact, which is that you are, I won't say your age, but you're 40 plus, and yet somehow you also get to have the reputation of like a young up-and-comer. How did you do that?
That is true. Golic Jr. constantly tells me that I'm part vampire, and yeah, I'm 43. I'm part. But that's it. Always makes me laugh, especially like I work a lot in the digital space, and the funny thing is, people are like, "Yeah, we really like the young vibe on the digital space," and I'm thinking, I am not. Just because I act like a child and never actually matured doesn't mean I am a child. But as long as people are going to buy into that, I'll take it all day.
Well, your congratulations on doing all the things that Stugatz wishes he could. And thus far, as you're still in the Gizmo stage, managing to pull it off. It is Spain and Fitz filling in for Dan and Stu and the rest of the crew. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests are going to join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Speaking of age, it is the 41st birthday of ESPN. So happy birthday to them. I don't care. Good luck. And also, it's Papi's 77th birthday. We are going to have a little special quick montage of some Papi highlights a little later in the show to celebrate. I'm glad that he's not working today because at some point Dan needs to stop mooching off of his dad and forcing him to work at such an elevated and old age. It's sad the way he just uses and abuses his father to keep up his profile.
The only thing Papi needs to work on today is eating as much cake as possible. That's all I'm saying. That's what today is about for him, and that should be celebrated.
That's also the goal for Dan every day, but it's not his birthday every day. It's just to eat as much cake as possible.
Dan, I didn't say it. I'm still trying to work my way in as a friend of the show. I didn't say it. Sarah said it.
Listen, I usually don't go that route, but I have to. It's a requirement of hosting the show or being a part of this is if no one else is around to torch Dan, it's up to me and Christine Lacey, and she will be back at that later in the show. Don't you worry, fans of the show. She will be interrupted numerous times and given the task of ripping on Dan. Let's talk about last night's Lakers-Rockets game because It was weird. It was weird. I turned away for a while because it looked like it was a done deal, checked back in, and it was a 3-point game. And this Rockets team, I think, is that game last night sort of is the epitomization of that team, that you can never count on any consistency. When they're on, they can pretty much beat anyone. And when they're off, it's one of many Russell Westbrook airballs.
Yeah, how does a team look so dominant in the third and so just lost in the fourth? And it's the same coach, it's the same people, it's the same team. They did everything the right way, especially when you look at the balance for them. It felt like everybody last night was at some point hot. And, I looked at that and I thought the Rockets were going to be able to run away with it because they were getting so much good production from all over the place and hitting every haphazard layup and every big three that came to them. So I really thought that they were going to run away with it at some point. And then the Lakers just came into the fourth and asserted their dominance, particularly LeBron. And at that point, it all turned around. And that's how quickly a series we've seen this. And I know we'll get into Toronto and Boston, but we weren't that far away from, looking like Toronto was about to be done. And now it's all evened up. Like Houston had that opportunity to put LA in a corner and they just couldn't get it done.
Yeah, the Lakers did a really nice job of taking on a strategy that teams have sort of abandoned, and especially weren't able to use when Westbrook was hot, which was not at any point in the bubble here. So before the hiatus, Westbrook really came into his own after a slow start to the season and made it really difficult for teams to focus solely on James Harden. And so on a given night, it was who's going to get his, right? At one point, Russ was averaging about 31 points a game and was able to bring that second, create your own shot, killer offensive weapon. And so if Harden had a bad night, or if teams elected to double team and trap Harden and give up the options to Russell, it still worked out for the Rockets. Unfortunately, the way that Westbrook is playing right now, it ain't going to work because you end up with Harden only shooting 12 times, which especially for Harden is an extremely eye-popping stat. And then you get Westbrook, who terrible offensive shooting night, terrible night for turnovers, and has just not ever been able to reclaim that mid-season stretch that allowed them to be a sort of surprising ability to play against teams despite their small stature, right? So this sort of small ball thing dependent on having two guys who could show up any given night. Instead, Westbrook, man, I mean, you got to almost admire the intestinal fortitude it takes to have like this many air balls and flat out terrible misses and keep coming back. I mean, shooters shoot, but I don't know if I would consider him a shooter. That phrase works for people who've got that smooth J when it's working. And boy, it was ugly last night.
Especially when you start thinking about the game that P.J. Tucker had, and P.J. Tucker was much more efficient and was huge on the glass too. But if I'd have told you going into last night that Tucker was going to get 18 and Covington was going to get 17, I mean, you start talking about the scoring they got from everywhere else. All Russ really had to do was sort of pull his weight. And to me, even if I could excuse the bad shooting, like maybe it was just one of those nights, I can't excuse the 7 turnovers. I mean, it's one thing to be a liability because you're shooting poorly, but when you're a liability because you're shooting poorly and you're consistently giving the Lakers the ball, then at that point, yeah, a big part of this loss has to weigh squarely on his shoulders. And there's no easy way to write that. For a lot of guys, it's like, well, I'm going to come out the next night and I'm just going to show a different level of fire. But you're right. I mean, Russ is just having a hard time getting going, and I don't think there's an easy solution to that. And LeBron reminded us that when he presses the turbo button, he can still win a game on his own in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, with Westbrook, the one thing that I would say that's a positive for him is that he doesn't need to or even want to depend on the three, so he shouldn't be taking so many. He took 7 threes. He was 1 for 7. This is a guy who, during the regular season, was third in the league in points in the paint. He third in the league behind, I think, Giannis, and I can't remember who the other big was, but a guy who can just take over by being more aggressive. And the way they were trapping and doubling Harden, that was open up for him, and he wasn't using the drive. He was continuing to shoot and shoot poorly, and so he needs to get his focus together on the turnovers and his approach in order for them to get back on top. But yeah, that was an interesting game. But to your point, the Lakers at the end are the Lakers everyone is afraid of, because when they do decide to start clicking, it seems like they're tough to beat. It's Spain and Fitz, Sarah Spain, Jason Fitz filling in for Levitard, Stu Gatz, and the rest of the guys here on ESPN Radio.
The great thing about facts, they're proven. Like the fact that crude oil contains impurities, or that base oil made from natural gas is 99.5% free of impurities. And the fact that Pennzoil is the first synthetic motor oil made from natural gas, not crude oil. It gives you unbeatable engine protection. The proof is in the Pennzoil. Based on Sequence 4A wear test using SAE 5W30. Ask for it at your local automotive retailer.
It is the Dan Le Batard Show with Stu Gott, Sarah Spain, Jason Fitz, filling in for the guys on this Labor Day. And it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Fitz, I was just on our after party of our show. By the way, you can subscribe to the Spain and Fitz podcast, and we have all sorts of pre-party and after-party content you can only get digitally via the podcast, so make sure you subscribe. But you were out the other night. It was a quick hour show, and I did an after party on Novak Djokovic and his decision to try to create a brand new tennis union that would be concurrent with the existing WTA, but he doesn't want any women in it, and nobody really is on board except for a couple lower level folks, and all the superstars are kind of like, let's think this through first. I don't know if we want to align ourselves with the guy who is having one of the worst quote-unquote off-seasons in the history of a sport. Now, it's not technically an off-season. It was the hiatus from coronavirus, but he started out the year completely undefeated, just crushing it, finally asserting himself at the level of Nadal and Federer, and not being that third guy who can't quite keep up. And then coronavirus happened, and his response to it was, pretty mature, Fitz. He was like, sometimes you get on a roll and you take this sort of organic break, and you kind of figure out what you're going to do from there. Unfortunately, what he did from there was establish himself as an anti-vaxxer, and then claim he was going to start this new union without any women, and curiously try to spin off in the midst of the worst and most difficult time for a sport, create a further schism by inventing a new union to compete with the existing one, and only doing so for a certain level of top player, and only doing so for the men. Then he decides to talk about how he's not going to participate in any tournaments because it's going to be too hard to do so because they're expecting way too much in terms of safety and cleanliness and coronavirus protocols, and he doesn't want to be involved in that. So he throws his own tournament without any of those coronavirus protocols and safety restrictions, and then he and his entire family get sick along with many other people that were there, and they're shirtless dancing in a nightclub, videos going around, and he's telling everyone how, well, it's different here because in Serbia we don't really have coronavirus. And it turns out they did. And he got it, and so did a bunch of other people. Then he decides to come to the U.S. Open, demands that he get his own rental house and not be required to stay in the hotel that everybody else is. He's crushing the competition, is the only one expected to win, is getting ready to, add to his undefeated streak for the year. And then he gets mad about a play, drills a ball toward the back stanchion or area, and hits a lineswoman in the throat and is immediately disqualified. Fitz, I'm going to go ahead and say that's a bad day at your job, also just a bad couple months for him. I think I summed it all up. I might have missed some.
I mean, the decision-making through the entire process that I think is stunning. And I heard the after party the other night and was laughing at the concept of forming a union that's only for the best of the best. Like, you're already in there's sort of an elite group. So you're trying to create an elite group within an elite group, and then you didn't invite any of the women to be with you, knowing that many of them have a bigger and better brand power than the elite men do. So I didn't understand a lot of the conversation anyway he was already having. But then to see I won't call it a meltdown, but just the moment of stupidity. And that's the easiest way to say it. I mean, he knows better than to turn around in frustration and hit a ball. And look, I saw some of the Twitter reaction yesterday saying, well, it wasn't a hard hit or any of those other things. All I would say is this is simple. Like, if an NBA player loses his cool and chucks a basketball, even if he's not intentionally chucking it towards a ref, if it bounces off a ref's head, he's going to get ejected. Like, this is pretty simple, and that's exactly what he did. So, the decision to disqualify him was absolutely, to me, it makes total sense. And then it's only aided by the fact that you can watch him being, disqualified in that moment and say, yeah, couldn't have happened to a better person the way the year's going for him.
Well, also, the number of people in the comments that were calling it a flop, I'm like, she got hit in the throat with a professional tennis player's angry, whipped forehand. Like, I'm pretty sure the shock alone would send me to my knees, not to mention the potential that I can no longer breathe. Like, the number of people that were reacting in a really strange way to someone getting hit in the throat with a tennis ball. Darren Cahill, who's one of our ESPN tennis analysts, was on Game Night and said, honestly, it doesn't matter if it was a total mistake, if there was any part of him that didn't care if he hit someone. The rule's the rule.
He didn't mean it. There's no question about this. There was no malice involved in what he did, but the rules are the rules, and they're incredibly clear to us as tennis players. And he broke those rules. And when the referee came onto the court, the referee has a chat to the umpire, then has a chat to the lines person, and talks to anybody else that the umpire can talk to get the full details of what was going on. And then you pull Novak aside and you work through that process with Novak. And I'm sure the referee pretty quickly in that conversation told him this is a default. And then Novak had a chance to give his side of the story. I'm sure Novak was talking about the fact there was no malice. It was an accident. He didn't even look. There was not much force in the ball that was hit to the back of the court, which hit the lady in the bad spot. But all of that is a little bit irrelevant. And as we said before, I believe that the tournament and the referee made the right decision. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're the number one player in the world or a qualifier that's ranked 500 in the world. Everybody needs to be treated exactly the same in this particular rule, and it's a default.
I just love hit her in the bad spot. It sounds like she got hit in her genital area. I realize that getting hit in the throat is a bad spot. I just, with the accent, just saying he hit her in the bad spot is
I'm going to start calling it the
me.
bad spot from now on. I mean, that's a done deal. I will say, one thing that's smartly pointed out there is that there may not have been malice, but that doesn't matter. The one thing that they don't want to do is suddenly open this up to interpretation, where suddenly you've got everybody looking at the replay trying to decide whether or not a player intended to hit somebody or intended to hit it hard or all of these. Like, you don't want to open this up to interpretation of intent. That's just a dangerous path to go down for any rule like this that can be so subjective. So it's cut and dry. It's simple. He should have been kicked out, and now I'm going to call it the bad spot in general. That's my new nickname.
Well, not to mention also that this is a guy who's been on a tennis court for most of his life and is aware at the professional level there are people everywhere. There are people everywhere. You know what I mean? You're not likely to be able to do something like that without hitting someone. And there was a player, Henman, a couple years ago, who was really well respected, a guy that everybody thought was, a sportsman, if you will. And he did the same thing. He whipped a ball at the net, not realizing that one of the ball kids was running back to the side and hit the kid and was defaulted. So the rule's the rule, whether you meant to do it or not, and you should know better because there's people all over the court. It just a bad day, which actually had me thinking. It is Labor Day today. You and I, of course, very happy to be here. Always happy to be working. But I'm curious on this Labor Day if people have stories of their worst day at work, because I'm going to argue that Djokovic getting DQ'd from a tournament he was very likely to win in a year when he has been undefeated, and this will go down as a loss, not a DQ. It goes down as a loss in the books. That's a pretty bad day for him. So we'll put it up on Twitter at Spain and Fitz, at Sarah Spain, at Jason Fitz.
Put it on the poll. I just had to yell it.
Put it on the poll. There you go. It won't be a poll, though, because you won't be able to vote. It'll be
context
doesn't
sharing. Matter, okay?
It doesn't matter.
I'm just two here. I'm just
glad
going
that you
for
got
it,
to say it.
Hey, it's your homie. Sorry, it's your home. I know you don't like it when I call myself your homie. So I have some favors to ask you. Could you get rid of a few chairs in the living room? My floorboards are tired. Another easy thing, we could save money if you bundled your home and car insurance with Geico. One more thing. I know you love lavender-scented candles, but could we try Tahitian vanilla? I think it would fit my vibe better.
Geico. For bundling made easy, go to geico.com today.
Sarah Spain, Jason Fitz. Spain and Fitz usually 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern here on ESPN Radio, but we're filling in for Dan and Stu today. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Just the attacks never end, Fitz. I don't know if you're aware, but Christine Lisi has it out for Dan, and almost every day she finds a way to insult him.
I mean, I'm just shook that there's 100 ways to cook an egg. I didn't know. And if anybody can find all 100 ways to eat it, I'm not going to say anything.
Impressive.
Still working on becoming part of the part of the crew here. I can't do that.
D Money on Twitter says, "You sound like Djokovic X. What did he do for you to go on a rant?" He's that guy. Thanks, dude. Not every woman who has an opinion is somebody's ex that's mad at them.
I love that. That is you are right. That is such a Twitter to any female thing. Like, what? There's never been like, everybody knows I'm a massive Raiders fan, and there's a huge argument about Derek Carr. I've never seen any Raiders fan go to another one and be like, "What? Are you his ex or something?" Like,
Derek Carr break up with you? Is it your time of the month, Fitz? Tim Bontemps joins us now to talk about some of the happenings in the bubble. Tim, thanks for the time.
No problem, guys. I'm sure I can follow that up, but I'll do my best.
Good luck. Just make sure you don't insult anyone. Otherwise, you're a
That's right.
scorned lover.
That's right.
Let's get back to the Bucks game first, and talk about the W. How much does it feed the questions about Giannis and whether he has figured out his postseason game for him to go out and for them to finally get a win? Is this more about the Heat sort of letting up with a 3-0 lead, or is there something that you saw at the end of that game without Giannis that caused the Bucks to be more well functioning?
Well, the idea that the Bucks are better without Giannis is a stupid one. But I mean, I think more than anything, the Heat scored, I think, 9 points in over 11 minutes in the fourth quarter, right? Missed a bunch of pretty good shots, I would say, during that stretch. Goran Dragic had a couple open looks. Jay Crowder had a couple open looks. Jimmy Butler tried to draw a foul late and was unable to get a call, right? So, I mean, to me, that's much more of what happened here. Chris Middleton played great. The Bucks hit some shots, but I certainly don't buy into this idea that, like, oh, the Bucks figured things out without Giannis. I mean, for them to come back and win this series, they need the two-time, soon-to-be officially two-time MVP to be out on the court and playing. But, look, they got a chance. They got to win. They're still in the series. They could point to games 2 and 3 and say they were in the mix down the stretch, really even game 1, 2, before playing badly in the fourth quarter. And Chris Middleton hit a bunch of shots in game 4, and they have some confidence. And, sure, they say, hey, we can go get game 5 and make this a series.
Tim, obviously Jimmy Butler not as present in the fourth quarter of this one as he was in the first couple of games in the series. So is there something replicatable there that the Bucks figured out on how to defend him better?
Well, I mean, when the Bucks have had success against Jimmy in this series, late in games, it's been with Wesley Matthews on it. And in games 1 and 3, Mike Budenholzer decided not to play him down the stretch, and Jimmy went crazy. And in games 2 and 4, Wes was on him a lot of the fourth quarter, and he didn't have as much success. So, I mean, to me, maybe there's some concerns about his offense, given that, Wes at this point is essentially just a catch-and-shoot guy. But if I'm the Bucks, I'm having him on Jimmy as much as possible because he's one of the few guys on their team who's big and strong enough on the wing to handle kind of the pounding that trying to guard Jimmy over the course of a game gives you.
Fitz, I'm worried about you because you're sitting in Stugatz's chair and you just made up a word. Replicatable? It's not a word. It's replicable.
Replicatable isn't a word?
It's replicable. And I'm just warning you to keep an eye on the symptoms. There's already people talking about the phlegm situation too from you, and I'm just worried that you're getting closer and closer to Stugatz. It's something you should keep an eye on.
Well, I'm shook. I didn't know replicatable wasn't a word. I thought, who knew? I learned something.
Well, I did, which is why, I brought it up.
Spain's 100% right. 100% right.
Well, that's just, clip that off and use that every day 100 times on our show. Spain is 100% right. It's Spain and Fitz. Sarah Spain, Jason Fitz filling in for Lebitard show with Stugatz. Celts Raps tonight. So this was a series that it really felt like, okay, is this the Raptors team we've seen in the past? When they don't have Kawhi in the postseason, they just can't keep up with the success they have in the regular season. But a couple wins, and now we're looking at a series here. Does it feel even to you, or does it feel like the Celtics still have sort of the upper hand in terms of who looks more suited to take this one?
Well, listen, Sarah, my thought after Game 3, when OG Anunoby hit that shot with a half second to go at the buzzer to save Toronto after an incredible play by Kemba Walker, that will be forgotten in the history of time, especially if the Celtics go on to lose the series, was that this is not the team you want to give life to in this situation. You're right. It's so crazy how things have changed for this Raptors team based off a couple of years ago when they were, being mocked as being LeBronto, and LeBron would just repeatedly smash them in the playoffs and send them home in sweeps, or they would, they got swept by the Wizards. And a lot of these guys are the same players that were part of that team. But when you win a title and you go through a run like they did last year, obviously I know Kawhi isn't there anymore. There's a different mentality with a team after that. There's a different confidence that you have. And you could see in Game 4, they're playing Kyle Lowry 46 minutes, 45 minutes in these games. They're playing Fred VanVleet the entire second half, both games. They're playing Pascal Siakam the entire second half of Game 4. I mean, these guys are tough-minded, mentally tough guys that have been through the crucible, have won a championship, and have come out the other side. And, look, I think if you just look at these first 4 games, I think the Celtics have been the better team. They clearly have more explosive offensive players, and I think that could ultimately be what tips the series in their favor. But, the bottom line is they gave Toronto a chance when they should have closed this thing out in Game 3. And now, if the Celtics have another bad shooting night in Game 5, all of a sudden you could be looking at being 1 game away from going home for the summer.
Tim, real quick before we let you go, the other series is Clippers, Denver. Not a lot of credit being given to Denver in general. They get a big win. Anything replicable there for them?
You're learning.
Very nice job, Fitz.
Thank you.
Honestly, I was stunned by that game. I thought the Clippers are going to roll in this series. It was really impressive to see Denver come out and make a bunch of shots early. I think for them to stay in this series, they're going to have to do the same thing. They need Jamal Murray to be great every game. They need Nikola Jokic to be great every game, and they need their other guys around them, Gary Harris, Torrey Craig, et cetera, to hit shots. If they can do that, that gives them a chance to at least hang with the Clippers, who should be a much better team.
And they need, some of the Clippers' best players to just not show up and to get cold. They need Kawhi to only have 13 points. Yeah.
It's a big gap for them, for sure.
It is, yeah. A lot of things need to go right. It's kind of like me and Fitz getting to host this show. A lot of things need to go wrong for them to get that desperate. Tim, thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Anytime, guys. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Tim.
It's your apartment speaking, and I need some favors. When you're singing in the shower, just try going up a key. You're trying to be an alto when really you're a soprano. Oh, and if you could bundle your renters and car insurance with Geico, it's easy to do online, and we could save money. And then, when you read your murder mysteries at night, could you read out loud, but skip the murder parts? Because I get scared.
Geico. For bundling made easy, go to geico.com today.
And I think we all had a crush on Jessica Rabbit. I don't even swing that way, and I'd hit it.
I'm staggeringly uncomfortable with everything that Stugatz just revealed.
Sorry,
Stugatz just going
straight
Flintstones. I was not ready for that. I was not.
I mean, I think we all had it in for whatever the heck Prince Eric was that in The Little Mermaid. He didn't say much. I have no idea why she was willing to give up her entire life underwater and her beautiful singing voice for just kind of a meh. But he was good looking. I will give him that. Pretty meh. I don't think Disney would make that movie these days. I don't think it would go over well if the point of the movie was she fell in love, and so she just gave up her only skills and everyone that she loved so that she could live on land with Eric, who, again, not the brightest bulb in the bunch. Very hot, though.
They'd at least add a conversation where, like, her friends would sit down and say, really? He's kind of meh. Are you sure?
Yeah, you're giving up your fin for him? You can do better, is all I'm saying. It's Spain and Fitz, Sarah Spain, Jason Fitz. It's actually the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugatz. But those guys are gone. So's the shipping container. Everything you know and love is not here today, and we're sorry, but it's not our fault. We're here. We're here for you in whatever capacity you're willing to accept us. Dan Le Batard Show is brought to you by Blue Emu. Pharmacist recommended. Blue Emu Maximum Pain Relief. Works fast, and you won't stink. Yeah, we were talking about bad days at the office after Djokovic got defaulted from the U.S. Open that he was predicted and very heavily favored to win. And we asked you guys for some of your worst days at the office. Rob found a used diaper while restocking shelves. That's not great. Alex worked retail on Christmas Eve a few years back. They were supposed to close in 5 minutes, and someone bought $1,500 worth of jeans with $1 bills. So
oh, my God.
You're just standing there. 1, 2, 3.
Where do you work that you get $1,500 worth of $1 bill?
I think we all know.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had to guess, and this is a total stereotype, apple bottom jeans. That's the kind of jeans you're buying when you have a job where you have $1,500 of ones and burning a hole in your pocket of your
100%
apple bottom
correct.
jeans and your boots with the fur. We will get to more of your terrible days at the office. But first, as we mentioned earlier in the show, not only is it the 41st birthday of ESPN, happy birthday, I don't care, good luck.
Happy birthday to him. I don't care. Good luck.
Now we're all caught up. It was an early morning, but here we are together. It is also Papi's birthday, 77 years old. For Papi Le Batard, the star, truly, of every production that Dan's ever been involved in. The only reason he still has a job here. We put together just a little bit of a highlight of some of Papi's greatness.
This song that will travel the whole world, but will never leave your mind. Yo, yo, yo. Yeah, it is Papi on the beat. Listen to what Papi has to say.
You see all the dolphins coming into town. Are you kidding me? Yeah, hot dogs, and you got some hamburgers, serious, mate, serious, some beer. Yeah, okay, let's
Drink Daddy, it was great having you here, buddy. Give me 5.
No!
I got him. He's a rookie. He's a rookie. I got him. Commercial break. Pour up, drink. Headshot, drink. Sit down, drink. Stand up, drink. Pass out, drink. Wake up, drink. Fade it, drink. Fade it, drink.
Oh, Sammy.
They call me Papi, and I am on your mind.
And happy birthday to him. I don't care. Good luck.
Oh, happy birthday, Papi!
That is well done by you and by everybody on the team to put that together, Sarah. I think after listening to it, it only cements, as you well know, one of my life goals is to party with Willie Nelson. I think I'm going to add party with Papi to it.
Yeah.
It doesn't not the same type of party, Dan. Don't worry, I'm not trying to have that kind of party with
you
your
never
dad.
know.
But
lives in
if
South
the
Beach.
offer's there, I'm taking it. But
He's had
however
Dan as
Papi
his
wants
son
to party
for the last 83 years, so he probably has needed some special things to help him relax.
I'm just saying, you know Papi, and maybe you facilitate this. Maybe
Partying with Papi added to the list.
Maybe we party with Papi, like Spain and Fitz parties with Papi. Feels like it's its own thing.
This sounds like a remote show that we should get sponsored and paid a lot of money to put together. I think you're onto something, Fitz. There's a little Stugatz in everybody. I wanted to quickly ask you I know that you are not the Bachelor Bachelorette fan that I am, but the Steelers have signed friend of Spain and Company, Josh Dobbs, who's like a NASA working engineer, scientist, quarterback combo. Very smart guy, very nice guy. And Dobbs was dating Bachelor finalist Hannah Ann Sluss, who got in trouble for I think it was something absurd. I'm going to completely mess up the details, but it was the equivalent of her doing some sort of photo shoot where she was wearing an All Lives Matter bathing suit or something. I can't remember. Maybe that was someone else on the show. Either way, Hannah Ann had some sort of mild, criticism when she was appearing on The Bachelor. But now she has put her differences aside with the public, and they've fallen back in love with her dating every quarterback ever. Because now she's not dating Josh Dobbs anymore. She's dating Mason Rudolph. And now that the Steelers signed Dobbs, we've got a full-blown awkward situation where her current boyfriend is in a quarterback room every day with her ex.
I mean, the rule on that's got to be just don't talk about it, right? No acknowledgement of it. But again, as you mentioned, Josh Dobbs is essentially a rocket scientist.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about the guy that can trash talk you so smart that you don't know how to respond to it? I wouldn't want to get into it with Josh Dobbs.
Well, especially if you're Mason Rudolph, because I don't know anything about whether he could compete with a rocket scientist in terms of his intelligence, but just by looking at his face, my guess is no. And he's got kind of the Eric from The Little Mermaid vibe going on, if you know what I'm saying. Man. I don't know. Reckless speculation. Spain and Fitz, we're filling in for Levitard and Stu. Spain and Fitz, we're filling in for Levitard and Stu.